If everybody could find a seat, we'll get started. Let me introduce myself. I'm Andrew Whitaker. I'm the communications manager for MIT Raise. Usually at summits and conferences, they do the thank yous at the end. I just want to give some kind of generic ones right now to thank the MIT Raise staff and the App Inventor staff for helping get things lined up, getting you checked in. I want to thank MIT AV, who's here and helping make sure there's a live stream going, getting all the recordings. And for those of you that traveled internationally, I'd really like to thank you. I know that that's a whole other levels of logistics that are needed right now. So thank you. I'm just going to do some quick introductions. Eric Klopfer is professor and director. He's professor and director of the MIT Scheller Teacher Education Program. He's also a principal investigator for MIT Raise Initiative. His research focuses on technology and pedagogy for building the understanding of science, technology, engineering, and math. Following him will be Hal Abelson, also a principal investigator with Raise. Hal is a professor of computer science and engineering at MIT and is the founder of MIT App Inventor, which at last count can now claim over 7.5 million users, 7.5 million apps developed by over 24 million users. And to say, 200 million. And then tomorrow, I think, we can look forward to hearing from Cynthia Brazil. She is another one of our professors, is director of MIT Raise. But let me hand it over now to Eric.
Great, thanks, Andrew. And welcome, everybody. And thank you on behalf of myself and Hal and Cynthia. Thanks for coming to this workshop. This is our second workshop. This is a picture from last year's with one who we're not talking about here, who's Tim in the middle. That's one of our MIT mascots there. I want to start out today just explaining a little bit about what Raise is, and then I'll hand it over to Hal to talk a little bit more in depth about a few projects. But Raise stands for Responsible AI for Social Empowerment and Education. It's the initiative that Hal, Cynthia, and I run. It's the idea of this is to empower everyone to use AI responsibly, authentically, and with impact. And that's our goal. And we focus a lot on K-12 education. But as you'll see, our mandate is a little bit larger than that. We have actually 4 different buckets that we think about here. I'll mainly talk about the first one here, K-12 AI literacy. I'll talk a little bit about our work in AI augmented learning. I'll end with our inclusive and equitable impact, which is sort of an overarching theme that spans all of what we do, and just touch a little bit about what we're doing in workforce AI education. And I'll do this quickly to try to get us back on track on time. One of our goals here is really to democratize AI creation and literacy. So one of the underlying themes here is computational action. You'll hear Hal talk a lot about this, but the idea is to address authentic challenges with solutions that people can engineer themselves with computational tools. And part of what we do is try to make that accessible to everybody. We think about broad impact, so we think about lots of worldwide networks and partnerships. You'll see people here from many countries around the world today, many of whom have connected with us or we've connected with them. And we think about lots of different ways that we can make connections around the world and between people within other places around the world. And we also think about work beyond students. We think about teacher professional development, parents, workforce. So there's a whole ecosystem that's required to make this effective, even if students are the focus of much of our work. Andrew thanked some of the folks here, but this is some of the team here that makes Raise possible. It's really a large team. This is only, I think we're actually missing a few people on this. This is from our most recent website, but we're missing a few people on here. But there's a lot of people that make this possible, and I really thank them for a lot of the work that goes on here. It's really we're the PIs. So we generate a lot of ideas and sort of bring good people in, but the good people are what makes these projects work. So thanks to all these folks for the work that they do. All right, talk a little bit about our work in K-12 AI literacy. A few projects in this area. I'll let Hal talk a bit more about this one in more depth. App Inventor, and now I have the wrong number here, 200 million. But it's a platform to create mobile apps on iOS and Android, and the idea is it should be accessible to everyone. Everyone should be able to make apps from young kids through adults and hobbyists, experts. Everybody should be able to make apps easily with this platform. It's both for making apps with AI and making apps about AI, and Hal will, I think, talk a little bit more about that as well. And there's many users, and over 100 million apps that have been built. And I think there's a growing many millions now that have been using AI within that domain. Another one of our programs is Future Makers. Future Makers is a 6-week summer program for underserved high school and college students. The idea is that they use this as an intensive workshop period to learn about AI and app development. They work and form teams, so the goal is for them to sort of form teams and work with each other and come up with an idea during that time for an app. The winners present at the big ASU GSV EdTech show this past spring. And over 40% of the alumni in the program over the last several years have gone to top 25 universities. So it's been a really great program that expands access to these domains for really underserved kids in a great way. We partner with SureStart on this program. And finally, I'll talk about Day of AI. At dayofai.org, you can find materials there. This is a worldwide initiative that's meant to engage students for a day or a week or a couple weeks even across all grades, across all subject matters to teach them about ethical uses and creative uses of AI. We've developed curriculum and professional development materials, and we work with now a nonprofit that we've spun out called Day of AI that makes us accessible to people all around the world. Over 1.5 million users since 2021. I think that doesn't accurately count the ones that we just did this past May. And as you can see, the countries that we've highlighted here are the countries that we've expanded partnerships with in 2024 and 2025. And that's an important part of this program, is these countrywide partnerships that don't just take our materials and use them, but think about adapting them and making them culturally and geographically appropriate for the countries that we're working with. We think about 2 different kinds of approaches for curricular materials here, and these are just a couple examples of those. One is thinking about focused classes, so technology classes that exist in schools, computer science classes that exist in schools. And so we think about a curriculum. One of them example here is RICA, Responsible AI for Computational Action, which is meant to be integrated specifically into those kinds of focused classes. But we also think about subject matter integration, where we're thinking about how does AI integrate into math, into science, into language arts, into history. We think about modules that we can develop in each of those domains as well. And here's one of the ones that's on climate science that illustrates that. Part of that is tool development that goes along with this. I mentioned App Inventor, and Hal will talk more about this. We also have something called the Raise Playground, which is a fork of the Scratch programming environment that adds some additional AI tools into it. And a lot of our modules are based on some of those AI tools that are developed there. Quickly, I'll talk about AI augmented learning. Here's one of our projects that we're working on. It's a PyTutor, which is now also becoming CalcTutor. So it's a tutor that's meant to be embedded into an integrated development environment that's specifically for Python, and it helps students through both chat and interactive activities, support that goes on within those activities to help students learn Python right within those spaces. So one of our ideas here is not to just have a sort of a chat bot on the side, but something that's integrated into the tools that students are using in those environments. As we're working on something similar for calculus, thinking about embedding something in problem spaces where it's not just someone asking questions about calculus, but interacting with a tutor that's in an interactive space. And we also have another one. One of our beliefs is that we think that learning is social. We don't want sort of AI-human interactions to replace human-human interactions. And so one of the things we think about is how do we use AI to help increase human-to-human interactions. So one of the projects we're working on is called Kale, which is about project-based learning that's facilitated through AI coaches that sort of sit and listen in on conversations and help students work together. The last big area I'll talk about is workforce education. This is our AIX Pathways project that we're working on, which is about linking universities and community colleges to help pathways for more people understand the ways that AI integrates with different kinds of disciplines. So it's about thinking about how does this integrate with computer science, with health sciences, with financial services. How do we think about each of those areas being facilitated to work with AI and make sure that the people who are in those domains capable of using AI in those industries. And the last thing I'll talk about before I hand it over to Hal is inclusive and equitable impact. Some of that is about partnerships that we have around the world. It sort of underlies all the work that we do, but it's certainly a part of the conference that we're participating in right now. This is our second one that we have here. This is a sold-out conference. Thank you for coming to it. And we have over 400 attendees that are here. This is a map of the countries that people are from, at least as far as I counted, but more than 20 countries from around the world represented here. Maybe even more important than that, we have people from all different kinds of categories, from educators, designers, developers, and dozens of students in our midst. So I really think that sort of diverse sort of set of people we get here is what makes this really an interesting and exciting place to be. So thanks to all of you for participating in that. And now I'll hand it over to Hal.
Oh, wow. When we were doing this a couple of weeks ago, we thought that with the various US government restrictions, we would have at most 100 attendees because of the instruction. And now we have 400 people. I can't believe it. Who's here? Who here is you consider yourself kind of a policy maker, either at the national level or a state level or at the school district level or even at local school level? Who here is actually thinking about having something to say about policy? Okay, who here is a researcher? Who considers themselves an educational researcher doing things? Okay, very good. And now for the important people. Okay, who here is a teacher? Okay, and now for the really important people. Who is a student? Okay, and who's a high school student? Junior high? Super important people. Middle school. Who is a middle school student? Yeah, you're the ones. Yeah. Okay, you're the ones who I really want to be talking to. And for all of these groups, we need to understand that this past 6 months, is extremely special in AI and education because we are going through, I can only describe them as earthquakes. I want to just mention three. The first, of course, is artificial intelligence. I mean, that's been around since 1957. And we've been doing research at MIT and lots of other places for a long time, but it is only very recently that people felt that AI has an impact on ordinary people. And you're all seeing that right now. We would not have had, well, in fact, the name of RAISE has artificial intelligence in it. We would have not done a broad MIT educational thing that even had the name AI in a while, much less the focus that this meeting and lots of others are. And if that's not enough, the second even more incredible earthquake that's happening is generative AI. Okay, how many people here have used generative AI? Okay, and all the middle school students, right? Right, and how many people, I think who are educators at least, are now concerned about what that's doing to computer science education? Fewer than I thought. I'll tell you that we are enormously, in the computer science department, we're really concerned. What is it that we really ought to be teaching in computer science, given that generative AI can do this? I won't speak for Ronit, but I'll tell you there's a lot of concern inside Google, exactly those same discussions. So generative AI is, how do I want to say, just begun to really, really transform this whole business we're in, and people are saying beyond education to maybe all of professions. And then the third one I want to mention has to do with the internet and the emergence of real-world data on the internet. I'll mention a couple of examples of that later, but the point is, what we're doing in education now is not made-up toy problems. It is about data that has real consequence in the real world, and what that means in terms of the people I care about, the middle school students. You can actually do projects now that have impact of things that have real world consequence. That's the major message that I want to give to everybody, but again, especially the students. I want to introduce a word, Eric already mentioned it, computational action. Computational action basically doesn't kind of say it's not quite computational thinking and it's not quite how AI works. It's saying, how can you make this technology work for you? Right? To have real impact on you, your family, your town, hey, maybe even your country. You can do that as a beginning student. Anyone can do that, including you. and not including you sometime in the future where maybe you're preparing to go to college, but things you can do now. And that's the real message that I want to give, and I'm hoping that we can emphasize that, and you will see that in some of the examples. Let me just mention briefly 2 examples. Okay? First one comes from the country of Moldova that you must know about, that's having a lot of problems now with aggression by Russia. It also has a problem with hepatitis B, because one of the things that's difficult in Moldova is to find good sources of water. Okay? Here's a project called Apapura, done by, I think, 4 high school girls in Moldova. So the way this app works is you take your phone and you found a source of water. You take a picture of the water with your cell phone. Right, notice any of you can do this, right? You take a picture of water with your cell phone and you fill out some information like, where is it good? Some things like, oh, the pump handle for this source of water is broken, and you fill out some information. And then what these 4 girls did is they took that information and they put that as a database on Google Maps. What's the consequence? The consequence is that anyone in Moldova, anyone in the world, now has a national database about where you can find good sources of water in Moldova. That is a real national resource now, right? Made by 4 high school girls. If you'd said to us at MIT, 10 years ago, make a national resource that has that kind of stuff, I think we would have said, in CSAIL in the AI lab, well, sort of maybe we can do that because we've got a lot of resources and we've got the ability to put up something national. That's 10 years ago. Today, anybody can do it, right? You guys, I'm pointing at you because there's a bunch of middle school students there. You guys can do this. You should have the ambition to create a national resource. Apapura is a perfect example of computational action. It says even kids can make valuable resources that have nationwide scope. And when you think about what you're doing and what you're studying in STEM and things, your ambition should be that great. It's not about something you might do if you go get a job 15 years from now. You should have ambitions about how you can do stuff now. Second example, Dharavi, outside of Mumbai, is one of the largest slums in Asia. Right? It's got a few million people in it. It's also got the Girls for Change. These are middle school girls, or 13 to 15 or something. And what they do is they use mobile technology to create resources for the Dharavi community. One of the things they did, they used MIT App Inventor to schedule their family's time at the community water distribution plant. And this is very meaningful to them. Their app is called Pani, which means water in their language. It solves the problem of community water distribution because it's scheduled, and people won't have to go fight for collecting water. And this is particularly meaningful to the middle school girls because you know who the family is going to be sending to the community water distribution plant to be in all these fights. So this is a personally meaningful app to them that changes their life and is a meaningful resource to the whole Dharavi community. Again, it's a real example, right? It's a real example of creating change, and that can happen even in the poorest communities. So when we think about possibilities, the possibilities are just endless. So the key takeaway is, just to repeat myself, is anybody can be creating, my gosh, worldwide platforms that empower people of all ages to use these new technologies, not just to say, hey, this technology is a great thing. Hey, researchers at MIT can use it. Researchers at Google can use it. This is for all of us to be able to do, and that they can engage a worldwide community. So I know some of you think about your users as things you might do with your classmates or your friends or something. Think about something where you could have an impact on the world. And we are just at the beginning of that. I can't emphasize that enough. If you look at the pace of with this technology, we are barely at the beginning, and what they need from you is your imagination and your creativity. Right? And Pani demonstrates that this can happen even in the poorest community, in the poorest communities. Okay. How are my slides going here? Okay, let me switch now. I want to say beyond thrilled and honored to introduce our first opening speaker, who's Ranit Murad. Ranit is a senior researcher at Google Research, and she's chief of staff for Google Research. And I don't just mean education, I mean all of Google Research, right? So that includes machine learning, that includes quantum computing, that includes all of the platform stuff that it's expanding, that includes societal impact. I mean, all of Google Research. And I am so thrilled. I just couldn't imagine someone who is better here across leading industry research and deep education to be talking to us to open our perspective on this conference. And in terms of education, Ranit herself is the originator and chief architect and manager of a Google program called Mind the Gap. Mind the Gap focuses on promoting students doing STEM, but in particular with a concern about middle school girls thinking about getting involved in STEM, and then thinking about maybe they want to do that as part of what they want to be doing in their community. So, Renee, I've said this before. I'm just thrilled that you could be here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.